All right, and it looks like we are live with another episode of Mentor Minutes, a chance for you to ask any questions you have about management, leadership, problems in the workplace with employees, peers, your boss, whatever it happens to be. We'll take the principles and the theory behind leadership and get you some actionable steps to get you over these particular obstacles that you might be facing in your day in, day out work. Mark on the ball right here, right off the bat, and I wanted to dive right into some questions. If you're coming to this late, you can always drop down into the comment section after the fact. I will get your question on the next episode, and that's actually where we're starting, is with some questions I received after the live session in the comment section. First one was from Ahmed. Joe, so good to see you here. How can I build mutual trust alongside precautionary procedures? So the idea of trust, and trust is an important thing. I'm glad you're asking the question in regards to it because it makes so many things easier down the road. The thing about trust, though, is it doesn't come quickly. It comes over time. So this is you setting the example. If we're talking about precautionary procedures, this is you holding yourself to the same standards. This is you following through on what you're going to tell the team. This is you being honest and transparent with them. Nielsen, so good to see you here. So it builds up over a ton of small little interactions. But what I want to tell you about trust, one of the most important things you can do, and if you want to speed it up, it's something you want to look for the opportunities to admit a mistake or where you screwed up to the team. That builds the accountability, the ownership, and it fosters that trust. So if we talk about specific procedures that you're looking to put into place, Aparajita, so good to see you here. If you're looking to put those procedures in place, be mindful of when you might not fulfill those procedures to the utmost ability or where you didn't follow those procedures. And I want you to come clean with the team. That is a way to build that mutual trust, all right? And it allows them to feel free to admit mistakes to you. That's going to be something that builds that relationship. It comes over time. Trust is built up over time, and you can communicate your way through it as much as possible. That's one of the keys, is communication. But look for the times where you make mistakes and admit and own up to those mistakes with your team. Tell them what you learned about it, and that's going to help build that a little bit quicker. So as we queue up some people here, if you have questions, any struggles you've been dealing with this week, anything that you've been putting off until tomorrow, whatever it happens to be, drop them down in the comment section. I'll get right to them. Another question that came in on yesterday's feed after we stopped the live session was from June, and it may have been a little bit of a joke question, but it does have a serious aspect to it, and that is, how about a colleague who says, "Don't talk to me for the rest of my life"? And I dealt with a question similar to this maybe a week ago. And when you have an interpersonal conflict, big interpersonal conflict with people, what often happens when that escalates really high up, where you start including HR in it, or you get a comment like this, like, "Don't talk to me for the rest of my life." What you want to look to do is you want to dial back the drama on it, and you want to act normal to this particular person. All right, you are going to get what you give in this case. Now, if you give special treatment to this person, then you are going to get special treatment, and it might not be good special treatment in the future. Look to have a normal relationship with them. Now, I want you to respect the person who says, "Don't talk to me ever again." I want you to look to them, and I want you to not verbalize anything, but maybe nonverbal cues, a nod, hello, something along those lines, something simple. Mind your facial expressions, and then that might allow for some slightly more normal interactions, opening a door for them, helping them with something, picking up something, taking something to a supervisor, whatever it happens to be. Start small and start simple, and then work up from there and build that relationship again. You're starting from scratch. In fact, you're starting from way down below because the relationship has been hurt. So start with the simple things. Make sure you're getting the simple things right, and that's going to carry you forward to the more in-depth things. Now, Aparajita has the next question for us, and it's how to deal with a stubborn and lying employee. The issue in this, Aparajita, is to make sure that you are picking your moment. I want you to pick a moment where they lie or where they are stubborn, and it is obvious they're in the wrong, and you have or you have proof that they are lying in that particular case. And what I want you to do is I want you to confront them with the evidence that you have of this lie or whatever happens there. A lot of times people resort to lying. All right, this happens a ton with white lies, and that is, it is viewed as easier to lie than to fess up to the truth. And so if you call out that lie, it instantly makes it more painful for somebody to have lied than to fess up for the truth. So simply calling those things out when it is obvious, like I say, pick your battle for when it's obvious. And maybe they're all obvious lies. But pick your battle and call it out to them. That almost immediately diffuses the amount of times that it occurs in the future. And that can be something that kind of gets you rolling with that. Now, in relation to stubborn behavior, again, pick your moment where it is obvious that their stubborn behavior is not beneficial to what's going on. All right, call it out. Call out those poor behaviors. Too many times we let these things slide. Call it out and keep calling it out where you deem appropriate. And that's going to be how to kind of tackle that and get that ball rolling. And then it's almost an interpersonal thing after that. You'll see where things go as things move on. They lie while taking constant leave and delaying work. That may be a situation where you are standing over their shoulder. This may be a situation where you are creating tighter deadlines for them. If they're delaying work, if they're taking constant leave of their job, this may be a time, hey, I need this done at 1 o'clock. Get this to me by 1 o'clock. Is there anything that you see that's going to stop you from doing that? And start holding them accountable. If they can't do this, if they're not doing their job, then get clear on the expectations, help them and try to make sure that you are giving them the support necessary for them to do their work. And then if they can't do that, then you have to start up the progressive discipline ladder. That's what you owe to them, their coworkers, yourself, and the organization. If you have somebody who's skipping out on work and not working, you need to call that out and you need to start up the progressive discipline ladder and get that person out if that's what it takes to get them if they don't turn around their behavior. Next question comes from Nielsen, and that's how should I deal if there is some company policy issue that is abuse that relates to some of my coworkers not to me work properly? The company doesn't have a specific code of conduct, a code of discipline, but it allows they're allowed to cancel days off and deductions. Some of the old employees had it, and as a result of reluctant contributor, I appreciate your advice. How do you deal with some company policy issue that is abuse? I take this up, Nielsen, to your boss, your supervisor, maybe an HR representative, if you have such a thing, there, and say, hey, this particular policy doesn't seem to be fair at all. Now, if I'm getting some of this, it may be that they changed the policy, but people that were were grandfathered into it. Well, then that's a way that they've chosen to handle it. It's not the way that I prefer to handle it, but I don't see that it being a particularly wrong way of handling if they've grandfathered people in. But take your complaint up and talk through it and see if there is a reason why this particular policy is in place or being enforced in the way that it is. Talk to your supervisor, talk to your manager, talk to a person in HR, and just be inquisitive. Why is it that we've decided to do this? And so that you're trying to take them off of the defensive, but you're just being inquisitive as to what it is. There may be a reason. And like I say, something like grandfathering people into a policy and not keeping new people there that are not bringing new people into that particular policy. I don't like that. Some organizations choose to go that route, and it's not, like I say, a wrong way to go. It's just a personal preference. Steve, good to see you here as well. Another question that I received offline was how to deal with a team that isn't convinced in sales but still in the work, against the rules, and just creating a toxic environment, just kind of reading through that. When we're talking a lot about behaviors today. And so if you have a team that isn't buying into certain aspects of the organization and isn't buying into certain policies or certain directives or certain goals that the organization has, and they are actively undermining that and creating that toxic environment, it's important that you have a serious but calm discussion with them about it. And there's lots of transparency we're talking about here in this particular session. But have the discussion, hey, and maybe you start out by getting some information. Why is it that they aren't on board? Why is it that they are actively, trying to destruct the particular goal or what the policy that you're working on? Why is it that they are exhibiting that behavior? What concerns do they have? That can open up a discussion that creates more understanding on both sides. You may have missed something. You may be missing something out there. So look for those things that you missed. They might be missing something as well. But the other thing is assuming that they don't have any justification for that toxic behavior, then you need to call it out and you need to be specific. That's so much of this with toxic behavior that you see in people, gossip, and even just poor following through of expectations. You want to be specific. What is the specific thing that was said that caused you to be concerned about this? And reference it directly. So much of this stuff, people retreat to the gray area. They find that that's a place that they can be safe and they can continue doing what they're doing. Shine a light on that gray area by talking about something specific and talking about it in a timely fashion, preferably something that happened today. That can be something that that is a challenge for you, but it's something that makes the feedback much, much better. So that would be kind of the way that I'd tackle that situation. Steve manages a team of 1099 independents. Your advice on best way to motivate other than money? One of the biggest motivators is a sense of camaraderie, teamwork, Steve. That's one of the big things that's on there. The other thing is getting clear on what the importance of the work is. So whatever it is that they're doing, what is the impact of that role? It might be the impact on the organization. Why is it important? It might be an impact on society in general. Why is what they do important? People want to work on important things. And so if you highlight that sense of importance, that can be something that is motivating in and of itself. And everybody out there, every single task that's done out there, every job that's out there is important. Otherwise, it wouldn't exist. All right. So get in touch with what's important. Talk about what's important. Talk about successes. That's another big thing to go with. A lot of times we spend too much time focused on problems, fixing problems, looking for ways to minimize those things, and we don't tout and talk about our successes nearly enough. So talk about those successes. So work on camaraderie, find ways to get the team together, talking together. Maybe it's a group Slack channel if they are remote, if they're together, maybe it's, I hate to say silly team building activities, but those things aren't nearly as silly as far as the result that they get. But find ways to get people interacting with one another, then really focus on the importance of the job, focus on I wanted to say ways to make it fun, but also I want to bring up to actually kind of ask and maybe do some inquisitive questioning on what it is that motivates them. What do they seem to be? And a lot of times you can do this if you're not comfortable simply asking the question. You can come up with a list of 10 things that motivate people, and you can Google those lists of motivation factors and ask people. But you can also look, when are times that they are excited? When are times when their work product is really good? Is it certain tasks? Is it certain days? Is it when they're working with certain team members? What is it exactly? And start tailoring your approach. There will not be a one-size-fits-all for motivation. Money is great, but money is rarely the prime motivator for people to do a good job. It's usually in the top 3, don't get me wrong, but it is regularly the top motivator of people. So check those ones out, Steve, and see if those work for you at all. Next question I have is that the staff comes to me as their leader with issues, but they don't want me to do anything. They don't want to be seen as tattling. Okay, so I like this question. This takes me back because if you've been in leadership long enough, you've had those instances where an employee comes to you with an issue and doesn't want you to really do anything about it because they're afraid that they're going to get pigeonholed with it and shown to be a tattler or a narc or whatever you want to snitch. So in these cases, you're looking for an opportunity to bring it up. So any opportunity you can. Maybe you let a few days go by. I've let a week, 2 weeks go by before I get to a particular moment where the issue comes up again and I can pretend like I saw it and was paying attention to it all along or something like that. There's almost always some sort of in where you can protect your source, for lack of a better term. So be respectful of people bringing you that feedback that they don't want you to do anything with. But also look for those opportunities down the road where you can bring up a similar incident into that fold, and that gives them the cover of not being the snitch in this particular case. It's just a matter of patience in a lot of these cases. But be mindful and be respectful of people that don't want you to do something, because if you do, then they aren't going to bring you that feedback, and that's going to be stuff that you need to hear. Next question I have is, I'm working in the same position the last 6 years. I do everything that a branch manager does, but they don't want to promote me to one. I am still a branch administrator. Please give me advice how to show them what I mean to them and that I am worthy of the branch manager job. So, big thing on this is to have the discussion with your district manager, if it's a district manager that oversees a bunch of different branches, and ask them, I've been a branch administrator for a lot of years, and I want to know what the concerns that you might have in promoting me into a branch manager job, should one open up, realizing there isn't one right now. What are the concerns that you have in regards to my performance? What would I need to show you work on to be able to get that position? So what you've done in this case is you've shown interest. You've made sure that they are crystal clear on your interest, but you have also put them kind of on the spot for coming up with why you haven't been promoted in the past and what you need to learn. All right. Now, what often comes out of that is nothing. You keep doing what you're doing, and eventually the time will come around, that sort of thing. Then what I want you to do is I want you to follow up a few weeks later and say, hey, just so you know, I know that I needed to, just need to keep doing what I'm doing, but are there any special projects, anything that's going on, anything that I can help with to help build up my skill set for that branch manager position? And so you give them a couple of bites at that apple. 3 weeks later, maybe a month and a half after that, you keep throwing your hat in the ring there just a little bit. You can also throw some feelers around to other branch managers in the district and say, hey, just see, what do you see? Ask them the same questions. What do you see that would prohibit me from being a branch manager, or is something that's keeping me from getting that particular promotion? Pick the brains of your peers. Now, if you're not getting any information on it, then it's a situation where you may want to look elsewhere. And I know you have a long tenure with this company, but there's two reasons to quit a job. One is you aren't learning anything, and two, you don't have any upward mobility. And so if they've taken out that upward mobility, regardless of how much you're learning, you're still not going to necessarily get where you want to be. That may be a situation where you move to a competitor. Don't like to give that sort of advice, but that may be where you're at if you've exhausted all of your other options. Good question, and wish you the best of luck with that. Next question I have, and hey, anybody who's on there, if you've got any questions, any struggles, any frustrations, drop down in the comment section. Happy to answer those for you here. What is the best way to deal with a new boss who always thinks you are wrong no matter what you say? Nobody on our team has an idea or thought good enough for the new guy. His immediate reaction is always no, or some other negative response. So if you've got a new guy that comes in, and this is one of those warnings for you, when you are the new guy or the new girl in a position, don't come in thinking that everybody else is screwed up and you are the white knight that's coming in to save the day. That's not what your role is. Your role, first and foremost, is to listen to your team and gather as much information as possible. Gideon, good to see you here. So take that as kind of your warning. Now, in the case of a new person that does come in all gung-ho, doesn't want to listen to anything, wants to put in their ideas because that's what they think they've been hired to do, what I want you to do is I want you to tone things down just a little bit on your end, and I want you to work from the inside with them. Ask them how you can help get their ideas into place. A, their ideas may work out just fine. All right, they might be good ideas. But B, what you're doing is you are showing them that you are willing to be a resource for them to make the changes that they want to put in. That buys you trust with them. Also, not for nothing, with your help, hopefully these things can roll out a little bit quicker and you can get to some of your ideas down the road. All right, so that would be kind of my first take on it. My second take is a little bit more of a general take on getting through to your boss. A lot of people send me questions about trying to get through there. A boss doesn't listen to their ideas, et cetera, et cetera. What you want to make sure that you're doing when you have an idea, when you want to put something in place for your boss, you want to talk about it in ways that your boss understands. So what do they care about? Do they care about increasing sales? Do they care about customer service? Do they care about turnover? Do they care about invoices processed and orders shipped? What is it that they care about that they are being held accountable for by their boss, that they're constantly talking about to the team? Get in touch with those and show how your ideas will help in that particular arena. So if it's revenue, you can use whatever example you have, your idea, and show how it ties to revenue. And it may be a little bit of a logical leap, don't get me wrong, but that will at least get their attention. They'll be more apt to listen to you if there is something in it for them. Such a key to communication is addressing the WIFM. What's in it for me? Your audience wants to know what they are getting out of listening to you. Your boss is no different. Be clear on what your boss cares about. Tie what you say to what they care about, and they're going to listen to you more. Next question is, how do I work with my CEO when collaborating when we have different views on what I need in my department? I've had overbearing CEOs. I've worked for overbearing CEOs, and first of all, you need to pick your battles. All right, this is part of it. Having the humility to serve the leader, to trust their viewpoint on things. Having that humility, demonstrating that humility, buys you the ability to step up and give a little bit of pushback when they're looking to make a big mistake. So a lot of the times I'll draw the correlation when your team comes to you with questions. One of the best things you can do as a leader is ask them, well, what do you think we should do? Now, if what they come up with is even just, it's not even a 50-50 sort of thing. If it's, 40% as good as what you would come up with, 40-60 split on what you would come up with, then give them the benefit of the doubt. With your boss, it's something similar to it, where unless it's catastrophic, roll with the punches and give them the space and the trust to go along with what they are thinking. What that does is that buys you the trust to push back when they are looking to make a big mistake or something that's going to have a big impact on the operation. All right, so pick your moments first and foremost. Second thing is to just simply ask the questions why. Try to figure out why it is that they're coming up with the way that they want to do things. The reason is A, you may find out that they are correct, but B, one of the best argumentative, and I almost hate to bring it up in this term, but one of the best argumentative techniques is to actually not attack the idea directly, but attack the foundation of that idea. So when you ask them why they're thinking that, you get information. What you can do is often attack those little supporting ideas that they have, and that crumbles the overall argument. If you took it directly head on, they'd be defensive, but by opening up a discussion, you can start gently attacking some of those things, and that can oftentimes bring them around a little bit. Good question and tough situation to be in. What are some good ideas for rewarding employees that don't cost a lot of money? Fantastic. Let's get right to it. There are a ton. I will tell you two of the best rewards that I ever gave out in my entire career. All right, and they didn't cost a thing. The number one, well, okay, they're really tight. The number one is parking spaces. Do you have 3 parking spaces that are closest to the door? Make those reserved for your employees of the month. That's a great reward. Or if you're doing a contest, they can get one of those 3 spaces next month. That's a huge one. Second one is actually just call it a late in, an early out, or an extended break. 15 minutes. You've got a 15-minute late in today. You don't have to come in until 8:15 instead of 8 o'clock. Or do you want to take an extra 15 minutes to run an errand on lunch? Go ahead. You have that. So you hand out these slips, and that's what they get. Now, I realize that costs money from a payroll perspective, but it can kind of be off the books, shall we say, is from a budgetary perspective. And it can also, it also is just really very minimal for the most part, and Gideon puts in a good point. A sincere thank you goes a long way. That's all you need to do from a recognition standpoint. But if you've got recognition, you want to put those in play. There's all kinds of fun things. It can be dress down days. If everybody hits a certain threshold, they don't have to wear suits the next day. There's a number of different things, and I encourage you to actually Google them. You can non-monetary incentives for employees, do that search. You're going to come up with something that's going to work for you. But be a little bit creative with it, and don't be afraid of it either. It doesn't have to be money. In fact, money is probably almost a bad route to go because it becomes an entitlement at a certain point. But come up with these different ways, mix it up, see what resonates with your team, and roll with that. Great question. Love it. Next question is I've been requested to join in on certain meetings. These meetings have nothing to do with my areas of expertise, and I find them to be a waste of my time when I have so many other responsibilities on my plate. How do I respectfully decline and help them to understand at the same time? A great question, and I really wish that almost everybody out there would have this conversation, because almost all of us have meetings that we don't want to be a part of, that are a waste of our time. And so what I would simply say is I would reference the specifics. So in the last 3 meetings that we had, I didn't contribute anything of particular value. I made a couple of comments, but they weren't of anything of any particular value. Yet these took up 3 hours of my time over the last 3 weeks. I would like to not be involved on these unless there is a particular topic that I need to be involved in. So you give them the reason when you look to decline these particular meetings and say, hey, if you need me, just get me on the phone. I realize that that takes an extra 20 seconds to dial me up on the phone, but I'll be available by phone if you need to pick my brain, or if you need me for a particular thing. But just explain really why and reference the specifics. All right. None of the things that we were talking about required me to be there. You didn't rely on my expertise on any of these things. I wasn't brought into any discussions. I'm not judging here, but these are just the facts of this particular meeting. So have that just honest conversation with them. All right. And give them the other part of that is give them that alternative. You can call me up if you need to. If you're going to be discussing something that really hits my area of responsibility, then go ahead and include me on that one specific meeting request. But being a part of all of these when I'm not contributing and not getting anything out of it isn't something that's an effective use of my time or your time, quite frankly, even just having me there. So that'd be how I'd tackle that one. Next question comes in is how can leaders support the physical and mental health of employees, especially in an industry that is constantly giving of themselves physically and emotionally on a daily basis? Simply being aware of it is such a key. You know, the physical and mental health of your team is something that leads to overall productivity. And so being mindful of those things is something that any good leader should be doing. So simply being aware and letting people know that you are open to the discussion. All right. I don't want to say put the ball in their court, but let them know that you are open to the discussion. Hey, if anybody has, physical or mental, issues that you want to deal with, I'm here to talk about it. All right. And so you can actually put that out there for team members so that they can come to you and kind of make you aware of those things. But just having a pulse on the operation where things are ramped up and they're stressful, it can often be a 10-minute break that everybody gets to get up and stretch or whatever else to just kind of release the tension, then let everybody get back to whatever crisis you're working on. But simply being aware of it is the first step in it. And then it's really almost an individual ad hoc basis. How different people deal with the same issue often varies wildly. And so be open to that. Don't have a strict regimen on how you deal with certain issues. I use the example of bereavement all the time when a loved one passes. There's lots of people who wouldn't take the 3 days of bereavement that they were entitled to because they wanted to work through that. They wanted to, I want to say, forget about it a little bit. They didn't want to just sit at home and constantly be thinking about it. Other people took it absolutely, and other people took 2 weeks. They took all their vacation time and then some extras on top of that. But being flexible with those things is something that's helpful in doing it properly. But being aware, simply being aware is the first step. So realize that those situations are happening out there. You can look at the statistics, and I was actually just meaning to do this. Look at the statistics for mental health or physical health issues that are out there amongst the population, and you will find 10% of people go through bouts of depression. So 10% of your workers likely deal with depression. 3% of them are sociopaths. That's another factor to play in there too. But look at those percentages and realize that's a reflection of your team as well. So be open to it. Next question is how effective, and this is my last question that I've received offline. So if you have any questions, drop down into the comment section. I want to say this is last call for this one, but I do like this question. That's how effective is a 360-degree appraisal process, and when is it necessary? So I find that it depends, 360-degree reviews, and this is where you are reviewed by your peers, by your boss, and by your employees on certain factors, and that's what they mean by 360 degree. It isn't just your boss giving you an annual review. I find that 360 degree reviews are probably best almost on a yearly basis. I wouldn't go any quicker than that. The important thing is that you are accountable to one particular person, usually your boss, and those comments and you have meetings with your boss on a quarterly basis to discuss what came out of the last 360 degree review. All right, so you are having regular discussions about it. It isn't a once a year thing, and it's not talked about for the other 364 days. It is something that's talked about regularly. A monthly basis, I don't have a problem with. There's enough to work on from that. But I really like 360 degree reviews because they generally give you some fresh perspective on some things and new things for you to work on. But make sure that you have your boss and have regular reviews with them about that so that you can work on making continual progress and it isn't something that's just forgotten about and moved on from. So with that being said, tomorrow, noon, Pacific Standard Time, I'm going to be talking about the brand new book from Brené Brown, Dare to Lead. That's our book discussion for this particular week. I hope you will join me again, noon Pacific Standard Time, and I will see you then. Otherwise, have a great rest of Thursday, and for everybody on the other side of the date line, I hope your Friday's treating you well. Thanks so much, everybody. Bye-bye.